I am Ali, and in the next couple of minutes we are talking with Mr. Erik Tائوب. Am I right? Is it the name? Erik Tائوب, right?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Erik, I want to jump right into the main question. What is ibogaine? Would you please explain us? Is it really a cure addiction?
There is no cure for addiction. The person, him or herself, is the most profoundly human tool for addiction interruption that I've found in the entire world. Ibogaine is an alkaloid extracted from a West African shrub, and one of the things it does, besides being the granddaddy of all psychoactives in the world, is that it interrupts addiction profoundly, like literally within 36 to 48 hours, so that a person going into a treatment doing, for example, 1 or 3 grams of heroin a day, or some strong pain management pills a day, do not go through the agony, the suffering of the withdrawal process from a strong opiate. There's what's called a metabolite that fills up certain receptor sites in the biochemistry. There's alcohol and nicotine and opiate receptor sites, and the metabolite from the ibogaine experience fills up these receptor sites and eliminates the craving. So a person is basically placed into a pre-addictive state literally a couple of days after they've done ibogaine. However, it is a very powerful, very deeply self-reflective 36-hour experience, and it's an arduous experience. It takes a lot of courage to go deeply within yourself, and it's almost like a confessional in that it gives people insight as to why they became addicted personality in the first place.
If it really works on helping people getting off the drugs, why is it's still illegal in the United States?
Well, the short answer is because it works so well. That's why it's illegal. I could add a few more words to that. Ibogaine is a naturally occurring substance, and pharmaceutical companies have no interest in something that they can't patent. You can't patent a naturally occurring substance. You can't own the molecule. Also, it's not a maintenance drug. It's not something that you take daily, weekly, monthly, that the pharmaceutical industry can make a lot of money from. It's a one-shot deal. Ibogaine, you do it once, and maybe you'll do it 6 months or a year and a half later, but it's not even it's not a recreational experience. The first thing that people do when they take ibogaine, they say, "Oh, now I know why it never hit the streets, and it never will hit the streets." It's a very deeply arduous, powerful experience. It's not like any other psychoactive, and so it's just not attractive to the masses of people. When I went to Africa to find it back in 1993, I really wanted to find something that could reach 1 million people. And my intention when I went to Cameroon, Africa, was to meet up with the pygmies and to see if they would allow me to bring it to the world, and I would maybe buy 40,000 doses for 3 cents each and go to Needle Park where they hand out free needles to 10,000 people, and I would dose them all up, and the next week practically no one would show up for their free needles, to shoot heroin with.
Right.
And I would call CNN, and that would be the end of my messianic complex. But it didn't work out that way. It cost me over $1,000 a gram to receive the first 13 grams from Africa of ibogaine hydrochloride. That's the pure active alkaloid located from the plant. And in these last 25 years, about 18,000 people worldwide have experienced and received, the benefit from ibogaine. So it doesn't reach a lot of people, and it's never going to reach a lot of people. It's too arduous an experience. It's a one-on-one facilitation. It takes a lot of care and a lot of consideration. It takes a professional care. It requires an EKG and a liver panel to receive ibogaine. But it's so profoundly effective that there's nothing in the world that we know of that can take the place of what ibogaine can do for an individual. But it's not a cure, because after an ibogaine treatment, a person's in a pre-addictive state. They're not craving, but they're still carrying at least some of the baggage that brought them to become addicts in the first place. And that's where the work begins. The ibogaine is 50% of the equation, and if a person doesn't do anything after that, but just thinks that they can ride this post-ibogaine honeymoon period where they feel like relapse, most about just people if they don't do the work afterwards.
Right.
And the work is very specific. It's not general. It's not, I have to sit across from a therapist. No, it's not that at all. It has to be, it's a very specific thing, because there's a very specific reason why most people become addicts. Most people become addicts because they have an abandonment issue, some emotional and or physical break with the same-sex parent. If it's a guy, it's with their dads, and if it's a woman, it's with their moms. And that constitutes about 2/3 of the people that have called me during a 20-year period have this issue. And the other third are broken up into two different types.
Hello?
Are you still with me?
Yeah.
Okay. 15% have an abandonment issue with the opposite sex parent. So 65% have an abandonment issue with the same sex parent, and about 15% remaining are just the type of personality that will do anything once. They're basically addicted to new experience. So they'll jump out of a plane, or they'll shoot up heroin, and when they fall in love with an experience, they just want to do it over and over and over again. So yeah, anyway.
That's right. One of the main questions when I try to introduce ibogaine to the people here is that they say, how is it possible to kick off addiction with something which is not non-addictive? And it's strange for them.
Right.
Yeah. Would you please explain why ibogaine is not addictive?
Yeah.
Is it addictive?
Well, psychoactives like LSD and mushrooms and peyote and ayahuasca and ibogaine, just generally speaking, are not addictive. They're not addictive. People might do them, once every couple of years or once every few months. With ibogaine, it's very different, because it's such a powerful experience that people don't want to do it any more often than once every year to 2 years, and maybe 3 or 4 times in a lifetime, and that's it. The other reason why is because it's such a powerful experience. You just don't do something that's so life-transforming every other day. It's just not happening. You have people call me 8 months after they've done Ibogaine, and they're saying to me, all of my intentions that I came into the Ibogaine treatment for have been worked through. Now I understand. And these are people that weren't addicts when they did Ibogaine. They were doing it for psychospiritual intentions or therapeutic intentions, like they wanted to understand their relationship with God more closely, or they came into it because they had a food addiction or codependency with someone in their lives. And it's such a powerful experience that it's the beginning of a process that lasts for months, that people explore themselves much more deeply. And so it's just something that you don't even think about doing very often.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you said that you were working with Ibogaine for more than 20 years, right?
Right.
Would you please explain about the success rate of using Ibogaine?
Well, it depends on how you define success. I mean, Ibogaine, every single time, if it doesn't place a person into a pre-addictive state, it throws a person into a pre-addictive state. What was the question again? Sorry.
I mean, this. I want to know more about the success rate of.
Success.
Yeah,
okay.
in long run,
right.
There are some.
Okay.
Some.
Yeah, it
papers.
really depends. If a person's in there, what it does for everyone is it places a person into a pre-addictive state. But what they do with that afterwards is completely up to them, and that's where the definition of success is up to the individual. But when a person's in their 20s and 30s and they're still living home, or they don't have a couple of kids, or they don't have a support system, they're going to do Ibogaine. And if they haven't really had the willingness to look inside deeply, if they don't have a life, if they go back to their usual life situation, there's a really good chance they're going to relapse. But if they're in their 40s and 50s and they're doing heroin for 10, 20, 25 years, and they have a job that they like, mm-hmm. and or a family with a couple of kids on their way to college, with a mortgage, with a support system, there's a good chance that they won't relapse. So it really depends on a lot of variables. Depends on where a person is at in their process. If a person is willing, and sometimes at least what Ibogaine does, if they don't go too deeply into the experience, at least what it does is it helps a person realize that they need to be open after the Ibogaine experience to sit across from a therapist that they really admire and respect, someone that they look up to, so that they can explore the reasons why they became addicted in the first place. That's at least what Ibogaine does for people. Right. Sometimes you'll come across a 25-year-old guy that has been addicted to heroin for 8 years, since he's 17 or 16 years old, and he won't explore anything when he does Ibogaine because he has no willingness to look inside. He's been doing heroin for 7 years. He has no capacity to self-reflect, to go inside. And so he'll come out of an Ibogaine treatment. He will not have gone through any pain of withdrawal. He won't be craving. And he thinks he's got the world by the balls again. He thinks, well, this is it. I'm free. And invariably, 3 months later, he's going to be relapsing because he hasn't done any of the work, any of the really looking inside to work out the reasons why he became addicted in the first place. So success is a very complicated concept to talk about when it comes to addiction and when it comes to this subject.
Right. You know, I don't know about the American policy, but in Iran, families will ask the rehab center to come and catch the guy and bring it to the rehab center by force, not by the willingness. I guess at least ibogaine can work better than this kind of policy, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It has the potential to really, on a very holistic level, mind, body, everything, to really transform an individual, to really help them transform themselves. You know, but it all has to do with the intention of the individual. Yeah, if a person is really ready, then of course they don't necessarily need anything. They don't need ibogaine. You know, they can walk across the street and be transformed. But when a person is really ready and they're still physically addicted, you know, the ibogaine is extraordinary because you don't go through any withdrawals. You go through a very powerful experience, but not the symptoms of withdrawal. And so you come out of it really free. It's like some people feel, when they're really ready to let go of their drug of choice, they feel so free after ibogaine because they know that they're moving on with their lives.